Here are the 12 footballers who killed their career. From a player who saw his career, ruined because of a single phone call, to another so addicted to burgers that he couldn't manage to play a single match. Not to mention the player who quit football after catching his wife with another man. Let's start with the Brazilian legend Adriano, for whom a single phone call turned him from the best player in the world into an alcoholic playing amateur football in Brazil. Adriano is an icon in Brazil, and he was one of the best players in the world when he played for Inter Milan. He was so good, with such a powerful shot, that it was rated 99 in FIFA and PES. Adriano was a legend for all the kids and teens who played PES 2006. He was one of the most admired players of his generation, and his club and national team coaches thought he could become the next R9, or even better, until one call completely ruined not only his career, but also his life. Javier Zanetti, an Inter legend, was present when he received the call, and he remembers everything that happened that day. He got a call from Brazil. Dad is dead. I saw him in his room. He threw the phone and started screaming. You can't imagine that kind of cry.
I felt that could do it longer and he didn't do it, was Adriano, because the way he was an animal. He could shoot from every angle. Nobody could tackle him. Nobody could take the ball. He was a pure animal. But it lasted for a short time.
In 2009, he left Inter, unable to get his life back on track. He went from club to club, and each time it was the same story. Parties and alcohol kept him from playing football. Despite numerous attempts to save his career, Adriano gave up football for a very different life. Several times he found himself in the middle of drug and arms trafficking. He had several run-ins with the law. It was a very sad end for a truly exceptional player. But at least Adriano didn't hurt anyone, unlike the next players who turned into criminals. A footballer's life can change overnight. Quincy Promes is the perfect example. Promes had long been considered one of the greatest hopes of Dutch football. He had years of international caps and more than 10 years of professional football. And in 2020, his career took a radical turn. Promes was living in Amsterdam, and one day he attended a family party. At that moment, Promes and his cousin argued, and Promes stabbed him in the upper knee and was arrested for attempted involuntary manslaughter. He was taken to court and was allowed to continue his football career until a verdict was delivered. But that's not the worst thing he did. That same year, he was arrested in possession of 1,360 kilograms of cocaine coming from Brazil and headed to the Netherlands. Not once, but twice. He was then quickly transferred from Ajax to Spartak Moscow, knowing that if he lived in Russia, he would be protected from the Dutch police. A verdict was handed down and Promes was found guilty of attempted murder and sentenced to 18 months in prison. But he did not appear at the trial because he continued to hide in Russia, where the Dutch police cannot reach him. Promes chose to play in a weaker league just to avoid going to prison. This guy really ruined his career, but at least he's smarter than player number 10 on our list. In 2007, Bayern Munich paid 12 million euros to sign Breno Vinicius Rodriguez Borges, known as Breno. He was German champion with Bayern Munich in 2008 and 2010 to 2011. In September 2011, Breno had a very bad idea. The player discovered that his rented villa was valued at least 1.5 million euros. It was insured against fire for 1 million euros, and so he decided to set it on fire in order to quickly get that money. He was free and did what he wanted, but at the same time, he was injured in several places, was poisoned by carbon monoxide, and had to go to the hospital. Ultimately, the player's plan failed. The police quickly uncovered the scheme, and in 2012, the court sentenced Breno to 3 years and 9 months in prison. Bayern Munich immediately terminated the player's contract. Afterwards, Breno admitted he had struggled to adapt to life in Germany, and that this was why he had started drinking. He was released a year earlier, but he could only count on a return to Brazil. Since then, he played for Sao Paulo and then Vasco da Gama, and clearly failed to make a return to Europe. Number 9. Dele Alli. Dele Alli's story is very sad and is likely to break the hearts of most who hear it. Dele fell so hard that he went from England's best prospect to a player hated by his own supporters. Dele had to live through a very painful period in his life. His rise to fame was not easy. When Dele turned professional, he thought his biggest problems were behind him. In 2015, he signed for Tottenham Tottenham and quickly became one of the best players in the Premier League. He was named Young Player of the Season twice and was approached by the biggest clubs in the world at the time. Shortly after, he made his debut for the England national team. In 2018, he helped England reach the World Cup semi-finals when he was only 22. The 2018 to 2019 season saw Ali struggle with injuries, and not just that, his problems were much bigger than physical ones, even if he didn't realize it right away. After Mauricio Pochettino's dismissal, everything started to fall apart for Dele. When Mourinho arrived, Ali simply seemed to lose his focus on football. He no longer had the confidence and strength that made him so special. A mix of bad influences and a traumatic childhood meant he didn't have the strength to fight for his place and ended up being transferred to Everton in 2021. He wasn't even good enough to be a starter at Everton. In 13 matches that season, he neither scored nor provided a single assist. His spell at Everton didn't last long, and he ended up joining Besiktas a few months later. His performances became so catastrophic that even Besiktas supporters began to boo him on the pitch. Ali didn't realize that his childhood trauma was still handicapped. Ali underwent 6 weeks of therapy in a rehabilitation center and says it was one of the best decisions he has ever made. But you still have to hear the story of the player who shines at Real Madrid but ruined his career with a crime that cost him 9 years in prison. And also the story of the player who quit football after catching his wife with another man. But before that, Oscar is another player who didn't know how to get the best out of his talent. Many people saw Oscar's incredible technical ability, performances, and talent on the pitch and were convinced he had a very bright future ahead of him. But in 2017, something surprising happened. Oscar decided to leave Chelsea and join the Chinese Super League. He was offered a lot of money, 60 million euros. People thought he did it to enjoy a luxurious lifestyle, but the truth is, he did it to help his poor family. Oscar explained that he came from a poor family in Brazil and that the offer from the Shanghai club was a unique opportunity for him to secure his family's future. Oscar made a big sacrifice and took a risk with his football career. With his talent, Oscar deserved to play for the biggest clubs in Europe, just like Adel Taarabt, who destroyed his career because of his attitude. Adel Taarabt was so talented that Neil Warnock, his coach at Queen's Park Rangers, once told him, even if you play badly, you'll still play the next match and the one after that. Even if you still play badly, whatever happens, you'll play because you're going to save us. Taarabt was so gifted that he was compared to Ronaldinho. He was capable of nutmegging an entire opposing team and scoring easily. He played for fun. He was one of the most talented players of his generation. But talent alone was not enough to save him from a dramatic fall, because a few years later, Taarabt found himself training with Benfica's reserve team and spent almost 4 years without playing a single match with the first team. Yet before that, Taarabt was such a good midfielder that he didn't limit himself to just scoring goals, he also provided assists. During the 2010 to 2011 season, he recorded 19 goals and 21 assists and helped his team get promoted to the Premier League. He also won the championship.
Who is our championship player of the year?
It's Queen's Park Rangers, Adel Taarabt.
After some time, he played for Fulham, AC Milan, and finally in 2015, he signed for Benfica. And then nothing. No appearances, no matches, nothing for 1,387 days. Almost 4 years. Adel Taarabt did not play a single minute with Benfica's first team. He was sidelined because of a lack of discipline, conflicts with coaches, and fitness problems. He chained together bars, nightclubs, and girls almost every day. He was even spotted once in a bar just before a match. He was considered too undisciplined, unprofessional, and overweight. His attitude didn't match the club's expectations at all. Number 6. Felipe Coutinho. Felipe Coutinho Coutinho is the third most expensive footballer of all time. Coutinho was by far Liverpool's best player, and he wanted to win big trophies, which is why he asked to be transferred to a bigger club. In January 2018, Barcelona signed Coutinho for 135 million euros, but that's when everything changed for him. Everything then went downhill when he left Liverpool. He left his team to fulfill his dream and play with Messi. It was supposed to be a success for FC Barcelona, but ultimately, it wasn't at all. He signed for Barca to win trophies, but the following season, it was Liverpool who won the Champions League and then the Premier League, becoming one of the best teams in Europe. Coutinho never really managed to find his place in Spain, and his performances dropped sharply. And 18 months later, he was loaned to Bayern Munich. When he returned to Barcelona, he failed to convince again and suffered a serious knee injury, which led Barcelona to let him go to play for Aston Villa in 2022. Recurrent injuries and a drop in level pushed him to leave Europe and sign with his boyhood club in Brazil, Vasco da Gama. Everyone thinks Coutinho killed his career by insisting on signing for Barca, but Coutinho is not the last Brazilian on the list, because another Brazilian star did something terrible. Robinho's story will undoubtedly leave you shaken, because in 2013 he committed a truly horrible act. His ego, his love for parties, women, money, and his behavior sent his once very, very bright career into a tailspin. One night, Robinho and his friend Ricardo Falco went to a nightclub in Milan to have a good time, but a few minutes later, things were going to get crazy. They met a 22-year-old Albanian woman whom Robinho and Falco, along with other friends, wanted to have that night, but she said no. What Robinho and his friends did next is absolutely disgusting. They raped the young woman, and the saddest part is that he almost got away with it. It was only in 2017 that the Italian authorities convicted him and the other people involved in the assault. These legal battles went on for years, and the final decision was taken in 2022 when the court sentenced him to 9 years in prison for this crime. But another Real Madrid player went from the best player in the Premier League to an overweight bench warmer addicted to burgers who couldn't manage to play a single match with Real Madrid.
While he played at Chelsea, Eden Hazard was an exceptional player. With Fabregas and Diego Costa, he was part of an incredible trio that made Chelsea supporters dream. Hazard spent 7 seasons in the Premier League where he completely dominated. In his last season at Chelsea, he scored 16 goals and provided 15 assists in the league. Real Madrid therefore decided to shell out 120 million euros to bring him in. To everyone's surprise, after signing with Real, he arrived at training 6 kilos overweight. He didn't meet expectations at all, but after only a few matches, during a game against PSG, he injured his ankle, and that was the last time we saw the Hazard who had impressed us so much. When he returned, he became a completely different player, much less effective and not effective at all. During the 4 years that followed, Hazard was always on the bench, chaining injuries and still failing to control his weight. He scored only 3 league goals during his entire time in Madrid. In October 2023, Hazard shocked the whole world by announcing his retirement at the age of 32, just 4 years after signing one of the most expensive contracts in football history. But now, for the next player, it's really sad to see yet another Brazilian on the list. In 2008, the Brazilian prodigy Anderson won the Golden Boy, but he did not live up to the media hype surrounding him. Anderson signed for Manchester United in 2007 because Sir Alex Ferguson recognized the young man's talent. Anderson spent 8 years at Manchester United, where he experienced ups and downs. He suffered injuries and never became the player he could have been. Anderson, the former Manchester United player, seems to have wasted his career because he didn't work hard enough, had a poor mentality, sometimes gained too much weight, and struggled to adapt to new positions or roles on the pitch. Even though he was considered a very talented player, he was a good player under Sir Alex Ferguson's management, but he didn't capitalize on his former coach's advice. In 2015, when Van Gaal took charge of Manchester United, he decided not to offer him a new contract, which led him to return to Brazil to finish his frustrating career.
Let's stay at Manchester United because the next player is none other than Paul Pogba. Pogba was considered one of the most talented players of his generation. He was unstoppable with Juventus, but when he signed for Manchester United for a record 105 million euros, he failed to convince. His time at Old Trafford was not the best, as he kept racking up injuries. But with France, he enjoyed a lot of success
success. Everyone thought that after the 2018 World Cup, Pogba would shine with his club, but at Manchester United, there was a man who had lost hope before everyone else, Jose Mourinho. As the club's coach, Pogba and he never got along. The two argued so much that in 2018, Mourinho even stripped him of the vice-captaincy. But in 2023, after his return to Juventus, the situation got worse for Pogba. He was called in for a random anti-doping test, which revealed that Paul had an abnormally high level of testosterone, which cost him a 4-year suspension. Fortunately, this sanction was reduced to 18 months. Pogba's career has known many problems and controversies, not to mention his brother's betrayal. But that is nothing compared to the player who quit football because of his wife's betrayal. It must hurt a lot when family betrays you, because Josip Ilicic faced the worst kind of betrayal. In 2020, Ilicic kept scoring goals for Atalanta and was one of the team's best players. He was a family man. His wife and he had 2 children, but they lived in Slovenia while Ilicic played football in Italy. When the pandemic hit, Ilicic couldn't see his family. After the lockdown, Ilicic received permission to fly home and decided to surprise his wife. He arrived home, walked through the door, and found another man with his wife. It completely destroyed him. The woman he had loved for 10 years, the mother of his children, had betrayed him. Ilicic then fell into severe depression and felt ready to quit football forever. He stopped playing for a year and left Atalanta, signing for Maribor in Slovenia. This year without football had mental and physical consequences, as he couldn't control his weight. Ilicic went from being one of the best strikers in Italy, scoring as a starter in the Champions League, to an obese striker battling depression. It's truly heartbreaking. If you love football like I do, you should subscribe at our channel. You're going to like it, I promise.